Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to the technical tracks for the evening. We're starting these off with a very interesting talk from Upstream, and the talk will be given by Guy Molho. Um, and just to introduce Guy, so Guy leads Upstream's product management group. He brings more than 15 years experience in product management, marketing in the global technology companies. Prior to joining Upstream, he led the management of AI products for Ernst& Young. Additionally, he founded and led product management team at NSO Group for 5 years, from all the way from a small startup to a multi-million dollar business today. He volunteers as a mentor in Product League product management mentorship program, and he has served for 5 years in 8200, an elite intelligence unit of the IDF. With that, Guy, the stage is all yours.
Thank you, Shalab, and good morning, good evening, depends where you are. Thank you for joining my session. So as Shalab mentioned, my name is Guy Molho, and I'm the VP of Product at Upstream. So just before we dive in, let me briefly introduce Upstream. So Upstream was founded more than 5 years ago, and up until now raised more than $100 million from different entities, OEMs such as Volvo, BMW, Hyundai, also insurance companies such as MSI and Nationwide, but also venture capitals, including Maniv and Glilot. And as such, we are positioned to solve the cybersecurity challenges in the mobility industry. And as you can see, we already do that by protecting more than 12 million vehicles globally. We are headquartered in Israel with sales and support offices in the main automotive hubs in Detroit, in London, in Munich, Frankfurt, Gothenburg in Sweden, and of course, Tokyo in Japan. And just last week, we announced that we opened the first vehicle security operations center in Michigan, and this is the second after the one that we are operating in Israel to protect those vehicles. You may already know us from our annual automotive cybersecurity reports. For the past 4 years, we've published these yearly reports, and this year we also published a mid-year report. Already working on the 2023 one, which will be out in a few months. Okay, so before we go into what is mastering the automotive cybersecurity in a feedback loop, let's talk a little bit on the numbers on complexity. For example, the number of cells in a human brain is, and since I can't hear you, I'll show the answer. But this is a very big number. It's 100 billion cells, and if we count the number of zeros, this is 11 zeros. The number of atoms on planet Earth is, this is a number I cannot pronounce. I don't know if it has a name even, but it contains 49 zeros after a very long number. Now, the number of atoms in the universe is, we go up to 80 zeros. And maybe you can guess what I'm going to show right now or not. But the most complex, or the number of variants, model variants of the Mercedes E-Class 212 is above 100 zeros. That's the number of variants. And this is based on a research done by Kubler, Zegler, and Kuchlin, and I hope I pronounced their name correctly, in 2010. And the number of variants and this complexity stems from the fact that vehicles has around 30,000 different components. A lot of them now are based on software, so a lot of software inside, different software versions. So the complexity is really, really huge. And we at Upstream and together as an industry, we need to protect those vehicles, and they become very, very complex and very, very hard to protect. So the complexity, as we said, is expands way beyond car models, permutations, and software versions. And the automotive industry is quickly expanding into a wide ecosystem that includes technology beyond the vehicle. So our vehicle is highly connected now. USBs and Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and keyless entry, of course, cellular communication, satellite, OBD, and you name it. There's a lot of connectivity in our vehicle. Um, these are all connected to third-party services and applications that eventually provide a better consumer experience, user experience, and maybe different use cases. So we are expanding into these technologies. They are including mobile applications that communicate with our vehicles, electric vehicles, charging infrastructure, also communication between the vehicle, the charging station, and much more. And we need to make sure that all this communication and all this connectivity is safe and secure. So the complexity is our worst enemy, and what makes the automotive uh, vulnerable and why it's so hard to secure. So first of all is the fact that attack is easier than defense. So we said that complexity is the worst enemy of security, and as we saw, vehicles and especially connected vehicles are very complex systems, and therefore they are hard to secure. The new vulnerabilities are in the interconnection. So the more we connect our vehicles and things to each other, the more vulnerabilities in one thing that affect the others. So it's definitely the case, as we said, in software-defined and connected vehicles. The internet empowers attackers. We know it, of course, in the last 20 years, and now it's coming to our vehicles. So connectivity is not only a means to attack, but it also enables attacks at scale. And the internet is a massive tool for making processes much more efficient, including, of course, cyber attacks. And unfortunately, scale economics do not trickle down also to enable a more efficient, effective protection. Security requires a high velocity, and the vehicle's life cycle, as you know, they are relatively long. Of course, much longer than the average mobile phone. Processes are much more complex, and the associated costs are dramatically higher. So that's what makes the automotive harder to secure. According to our research at Upstream, and as we mentioned in our yearly reports, we researched those attacks and things in the field. So based on our research, half of all auto cyber attacks in history occurred in 2021 alone, and this is nearly up 140% from 2020. As you can see, more than 50% of the vulnerabilities are rated as high and medium, and most of them were carried out by black hat attackers and not just researchers in the lab. In addition to that, we saw a dramatic increase of more than 253% in the discussion and vulnerabilities found in the deep and dark web in 2021 compared to 2020. So the industry is connected, and the hackers and attackers understand it, and they go and share their ideas and the vulnerabilities in deep and dark web. We see that they are outnumber the number of researchers that conduct these attacks or this research. and a lot of the things that are found are rated in high and medium. So again, the problem is here, and it's something that we need to address. Also, remote versus physical attacks. So the connectivity, of course, provide the ability to attack remotely. Um, we we do not need we do not require your presence near the object anymore, and API vulnerabilities are enabling, among others, the long range attacks. So you can see the remote attacks are outnumber those carried out physically, 80 almost 85% versus 15. So this is how attacks are being carried out today. Okay, so how to deliver automotive cyber resilience? First of all, we need to master resiliency via a feedback loop. Second, we need to establish industry best practices. And last, we need to focus on the entire smart mobility ecosystem. And this is what I showed before. It's no longer just a vehicle. It's the vehicle and the services they are connected to, and the application and the electric vehicles and the charging station. A lot of an entire ecosystem of the smart mobility that we need to make sure we focus on it. Okay, the continuous cybersecurity requires a feedback loop. That's our main topic here at this session, and this is what I'm going to talk right now. What we see as the best way, or what are the methodology that we believe that will help better protect the vehicles. A continuous loop includes um, massive data, piles of different technology and approaches, and of course, highly skilled teams. We need data, we need technology, and we need teams. And we need to collect the data, we need to monitor it, we need, of course, to detect. We need to talk about detection versus prevention. We'll talk about in a second. And of course, what do we do with what we detect, or the response team, or what we call the Vehicle Security Operations Center, how they deal with what we detect. Sorry, just a second. So, collection. Um, we need to make sure that we have massive collection capabilities. We need to build a data lake that is highly performance, holistic, and comprehensive understanding of the connected vehicles and the ecosystem. We should not collect only the connected vehicle data. We should collect the mobile application that is connecting with the vehicle. We need to collect the data that is coming from charging station, APIs, and we need to build a holistic approach to cover that. We have a lot of challenges doing that. The data is unstructured. We need to enrich it from various sources in order to understand what it means. We need to make sure that we are supporting a multi-cloud and or a cloud agnostic environments. We're working with a lot of OEMs. They all work with different clouds. Some of them work with the multiple clouds, so we need to make sure that our collection and monitoring capabilities do not suffer from any cloud lock-in. We need to make sure that during the collection we are building a contextualized view. So when we monitor the vehicle, we truly understand what is the vehicle, what is the data, and of course we need to structure the unstructured data. We need to make sure we're doing it in real time or near real time in order to process and to find those anomalies. We need to handle PII, the privacy information, by encrypting it to make sure that the data is anonymized. there's a lot of challenges during the collection that we need to make sure to handle. After we cross the collection section or the part, we are moving to the monitoring section. So we built our data lake, and OEM needs the capability to monitor the entire fleet. It's not enough to monitor a single vehicle. Of course, they need a perspective of the entire fleet. They need to understand the trends. They need to monitor their pipeline health. They need to build profiles of standard vehicles and profiles of behavior of the entire fleet in order to then detect those anomalies or the abnormal activity of a single vehicle or a group of vehicles. Okay, the big question or the debate is whether we need to detect, prevent, or do both. So do we look on the vehicle from a multi-issue perspective and expanding the view to fleet-wide data analysis, or whether we take the prevention approach that focuses mainly on a single issue or a gateway? Of course, there are pros and cons for each of the methods. Um, we need to what we offer here is when we need to make sure that each approach you go through should be based on advanced AI and machine learning methodologies that would enable OEMs to protect against new and unknown threats, and not just the ones that are reported. And the end results should be, in our eyes, not just to build mechanism to detect security issues, but to build this data lake that knows how to handle anomalies in multiple use cases. Cyber attacks, of course, is the enabler, and this is the first priority. But we see a lot of issues, data quality issues, and we see fraud data, and we see safety and production and manufacturers issues. And if we put the right collection and monitoring capabilities and technology, we can enable OEMs do much more things than just protecting against cyber attacks. And last, we need to assemble the right team in order to analyze the alerts and the insights, and of course to investigate and offer effective processes and automation for remediation. We need to You need to leverage the 1-10-60 breakout time framework, and to put in place effective processes in order to sift through thousands of alerts, to enable drill downs and investigations, and to ensure fastest and most effective response. In addition, you need to leverage third-party processes and workflows in order to expedite the response and the remediation. And of course, the last is you need processes and tools in order to feed back your insights and results back to the collection and to the design and the product teams in order to protect and or to make changes at the earliest point. And this is the feedback loop that we're talking about. I mean, after we responded and after we learned something, we need to make sure that we are going back to our collection and going back to our monitoring and improving these processes. If we need to collect something new in order to protect against it, if we need to add more rules or more things in order to monitor against, so we can detect them further on. This is an ongoing feedback loop that eventually improves security, improve processes, improve quality, improve a lot of things for the OEMs. We already see it in the field. To summarize, what appears to be a technology and services stack is it's essentially an ongoing feedback loop. Effective detection, of course, will impact how teams collect the data, how they process it. The VSOC teams will identify new threats and feed this knowledge into the collection and detection stages. This is the feedback loop, and it's technology, processes, and of course teams. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the industry best practices. In order to be effectively fight cyber criminals, we need a collaborative effort. So the bad guys or the attackers are collaborating and they are organized like corporations, and so should we the good guys, I would say. Um, there are still silos between the R&D and the ITs, which were supposed to be broken up a while ago. They're still a common phenomenon, and we need to make sure we break those silos and cooperate between the R&D and the IT. So things that we found in the VSOC, we need to make sure that the product design, are aware of them and make those changes earliest at the chain in order to break it up later on. VSOC, as we said, it's not just a tool. It's a collaboration. It's a technology. It's team. It's processes. We discussed this before. It's not just a monitoring tool. It's a combination of the three of them. We need to make sure that we go beyond meeting the minimum compliance requirements. Of course, we are all aware of that we need to make sure that we are comply with the regulation, with the WP29, with the ISO 21434. We need to make sure, but we need to go beyond meeting those minimum compliance requirements. And of course, we need to make sure that cybersecurity literacy is available for clients and for the users, for them to gain more knowledge and to share this knowledge across the teams. It's not just a knowledge that needs to be for the analyst or the design. We need to make sure that everyone is aware of this and share this knowledge between the teams and make sure that the knowledge is flowing between them in order to to feedback those teams and make the change to make those vehicles more secure. That's it on my end. If there are questions, I think we have 5 minutes. I can take them.
Yes. Thank you, Guy, for that very interesting talk and insights. So to the audience, if you have questions, so please post them in the Q&A tab, and I will ask them on stage. We have very little time for questions, so just. But so while the audience is sort of thinking through this, uh, maybe just a quick question, or actually two quick questions from my side. So, so one of the things which you had also highlighted, in the collect phase is PII, right? Of course, there's directly PII, which is very evident, but also like if you see talks, for example, Noel presented this morning in his forensic talk. PII can come from a lot of side channels. Like collecting a lot of small bits of information can actually help you reconstruct, something which might be PII but doesn't directly look like PII. So there's a big privacy versus security trade-off, right? In this case. So what are your thoughts on this, and how is the industry grappling with this, particularly in light of, GDPR fines increasing, etc.
Right. So we invest a lot of time, when we work with our clients, and especially with OEMs, to identify those PII. and to protect those data points. This, of course, the very easy one are the VINs, the locations, the IPs, and things like that that comes from the vehicle. But as you mentioned, there are things which are not easy to understand, that these are PIIs, and we have other prospects and clients discussing this issue specifically with us, that they have a lot of issues with PII, and they want to make sure that their data lakes do not contain the PII when sharing this across the organization. And this is also something that we're working with our clients towards, to build detection capabilities and mechanism in order to find those PII and alert the clients on them. So this is a major issue, and we have some capabilities in order to protect against, and we constantly learn and find more and more use cases to find those PIIs, and then either anonymize them, decrypt them, encrypt them. It really depends, how to handle the different PIIs.
So maybe just one quick thought before leaving. So just to in 1 minute, if you can respond to this. So it seems every OEM is trying to solve this problem on their own, right? So every OEM has their own VSOC, or they would have their own VSOC. Do you think a joint effort could make this problem easier? Or do you think that's possible at all, or do you think that will simplify things for security?
I think that's one of the things that upstream brings to the table. We work with the multiple OEMs. Most of them are globally, and the fact that we have the VSOC, the teams on our end, we understand the problems, or we see the incidents across OEMs. Of course, we don't share this knowledge. I mean, the incidents between the OEMs and the data, of course, is totally separated. But we have teams that works on incidents of different OEMs, and the knowledge that they and the experience that they gain helps us much more than a single team that works on a single OEM. So this data or this experience is of course being shared on our teams between the different OEMs. So if we find something in a single OEM, in a specific OEM, we of course bring this knowledge to the other OEM. So we are currently operating as the middleman,
Hmm.
or the entity that shares this knowledge between the OEMs, and they value this. This is one of the things that they value about upstream, the fact that we work with a lot of them, and we see a lot of incidents from the various OEMs, and share this knowledge to the other OEMs as well.
Great. Thank you. Well, thank you for your very interesting talk and the very interesting post talk discussion. Um,
Thank you. Thank you for
yeah.
the opportunity to speak with the audience.
Yeah. And for the audience, so we have another talk coming up, so just stay tuned. So I will end this session and you will connect to the next session automatically. Thank you. Thanks. Thanks, Guy.
Thank you, Shalab.